Refuge and what the great stuff that she does up there.
Hey everyone. So for the ones that don't know me, I'm Nicole. I'm the executive director and founder of the Good Life Refuge. Thank you so much for joining us today and, being part of our class and also supporting our animals. We need it more than ever right now because we had about $4,000 so far in medical expenses that were not calculated. We have a lot of sick animals right now. Which is atypical, but when it rains, it pours, I think. So we have been around since 2018. We're pretty new still. We're a farm animal sanctuary that is, we're rescuing neglected, abused, and at-risk farm animals. We have about 60 animals on site right now and 11 or 12 different species. I need to count again. We just added some baby sheep, so that kind of got the species up. Most of our animals are birds. We have around 30 birds, and then the rest is medium to large animals like cows and pigs and goats and the lambs now. And we do have some cats and dogs as well that are sanctuary animals. We are a 100% volunteer-run organization and are a 501c3, so we solely depend on your guys' support and donations. I'm using too much today. I've been out a little, not quite in presentation mode right now. We had tons of medical this morning and my turkey's not doing well. So I literally ran out getting him and then ran back in. So we have tons of events coming up. If you haven't seen it, we're working on more of the cooking classes. And we also just started a yoga class, which will be coming up next weekend on Saturday. It will be a Zoom class and it is on site here if the weather permits. If not, we're going to have it in the studio. It's one of our volunteers who's also a yoga instructor. So that's cool. And we're going to have a series coming up. So once a month, we have that yoga class. And we're hoping if COVID allows at some point, we can even have it on site the sanctuary, which will be fun. We won't have it within the animals because I don't think that is cool. Having goats and all the stuff running over you while you're trying to do yoga. But that's kind of the plan. As long as the COVID doesn't let us do it, we will do it, we assume. So that's coming up. Look at our events calendar if you're interested in yoga. And with that, I'm just gonna mute myself and let Sarah take over.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and huge thank you to Nicole for all of your efforts and everything that you're doing for the animals. And like she mentioned, she's getting some other great classes, cooking classes together. So keep an eye out for those. She's doing some food as medicine and a cancer prevention workshop. And we're also trying to get some of our local brands to do some cooking demos as well. Today we are here to talk about vegan bacon, and this is a really fun class. I want to thank my friend Chris for giving us this idea, and this is a really important topic, and it's going to be a lot of fun too. I really love, I wasn't a huge fan of bacon when I was a kid, but I love vegan bacon, and I'm going to tell you all about how you make your bacon taste fantastic. The first thing that I'm going to get started with is I'm going to quickly demo our first two recipes. And the first recipe I want to go over is some tofu bacon. And I believe everyone has the handouts. These recipes are included in the handouts. And tofu bacon was the first bacon that I ever made. I think tempeh and tofu bacon were some of the first bacons that I ever made. The key to making delicious bacon is in the marinade. And I believe most of us know how to marinade. But if you don't, I will go walk you through the basic steps as we go. So this tofu is sperm tofu, and I've pressed it just gently, and then I've sliced it real thin. You want to slice it into about 1/8 of an inch strips. So, and this is a little bit thick. If you can get it any thinner, that's good. And there are two ways, or I think the two best ways to cook them are either on the stove top. Oops, I got that turned up a little too high. But you can cook it on the stove top, or you can also bake it. And I've included the instructions on how to bake it. I baked some this morning. It was really delicious. And then I'm just quickly going to show you how you fry it in a skillet. When you can use a cast iron skillet. A skillet's a really good way to cook it, or you can just cook it in a regular skillet. And when you're cooking it, you want to do it at medium heat to medium high heat. The bacon, and I'll mention this several times, the bacon, it burns really easily. So you want to be very mindful of it, and you want to watch it carefully. I've made this mistake. You don't want to put it in the oven or put it on the stove and walk away. It cooks very quickly and it also burns very easily. So watch it carefully. You're also going to want to flip it or stir it to prevent it from burning. Now in this recipe that you have, I mentioned that you want to cook it at medium heat, but you can also cook it at medium high. Just be very careful because it will burn. And so I just wanted to quickly demonstrate the basic ways to cook tofu bacon. You want to marinate it at least 1 hour or overnight. I marinated it last night and then I just pulled it out and I'm going to cook it in the skillet. I probably won't walk through all the steps of how to cook it in the skillet because I think that you guys know how to cook stuff in the skillet. But like I said, we have it in here and in the skillet. And then when you want to flip it, the best thing to use is a spatula. You can also use tongs or even, you can use tongs or even a fork as well. So I'm gonna pull that off, and then I actually baked some this morning, and then I'll show you how it turns out. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to move on to the coconut bacon. And the coconut bacon is probably one of my favorite bacons. And I think a lot of people really like this bacon too as well. It's super easy to make, and it really is easy to keep. You can keep it in your refrigerator. And it's also a nice thing to take you can take it on like camping trips or hiking trips as well. This is Bob's Red Mill Flaked Coconut. And there's a really nice recipe for the coconut bacon on the back of the bag, as a matter of fact. But I made this recipe and it was really sweet. And I know some people don't enjoy recipes that are too sweet. So I used a recipe that's just a little less sweeter. And just so everybody would enjoy it. If you like sweeter bacon, I would say you want to add a little bit of maple syrup or even molasses as well. So I'm going to quickly make up a marinade. And the way I'm making the marinade is with a little bit of soy sauce. And then I have a little bit of olive oil. I have a little bit of maple syrup. And then we're going to add some liquid smoke as well. So what I'm going to do to make the quick marinade is just make it in I've reused this little jar, and I'm going to just pour my ingredients in the jar. And I'm halving this recipe because I made some of it earlier. So I'm just gonna do half of the recipe. You do 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And then I'm gonna do half a tablespoon of olive oil. And then we have a teaspoon of a tablespoon of liquid smoke. So we'll just do half a tablespoon of this. And like I said, you have all of these recipes. And so you can, make them yourself. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can alter them to your own tastes as well. So I've added all of the ingredients to the jar, and then I'm just going to give it a good shake. If you don't have a jar on hand, you can just make it in a bowl, make it in a glass. You can even pour all of the marinade ingredients just directly into the coconut. So I'm going to pour all of our pre-mixed ingredients into the coconut, and then I'm going to just stir it. And you want to make sure it's all combined, and then pour the remaining ingredients or the remaining marinade into the coconut. And then it turns a little bit of a brown color. And like I said, you can test this at this point and see if it's salty enough, if it's smoky enough, if it's sweet enough, if there is anything else you'd want to add. One thing that the Bob's Red Mill recipe adds is a little bit of apple cider vinegar. They also add some molasses if you like it sweeter. It just depends on your taste. So now I'm going to take my coconut bacon, and I'm going to, this recipe you want to bake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a parchment lined baking sheet. And they also recommend that you let this, the coconut bacon marinade, you want to let it set for a little while so the coconut soaks in the marinade. And you want to spread the coconut out evenly, and that's what you have. And then I've included the directions for how to, the temperature. I believe it's 325. And this is a very delicate, because these are such thin chips, it's a very delicate, it cooks very quickly, and it also burns really easily. So you want to be very mindful of the temperature, and you want to be very mindful of the time, because the first time I made this recipe, it burned really quickly. You also want to stir it. I've included in the instructions that you want to stir it every 3 minutes, because the time it takes to burn is almost, it's very quick. It can burn really easy, and if you burn it, it really gets kind of a nasty flavor. It's not very good. The bacon is not very good if it gets a burned flavor. You want to have it crispy enough, but not burned. So
that happened to me when I did that. This is one of my favorite bacon. So
yeah,
get into here, but you literally have to kind of watch it closely.
It's so delicate. Like I said previously, don't put none of these bacons. I would recommend putting them on the stove or in the oven and then walking away. I've made that mistake so many times. And stay by your bacon and just make sure that it's getting crispy enough but not burnt. So yeah, we've all made that mistake, and I'll emphasize that many times. And I'll talk a little bit more about the parchment paper, but it's really important to line your cookie sheet with parchment paper, because it does a lot of things. It kind of provides some insulation and helps it from sticking, and it also helps it cook a little bit more evenly. And then I kind of want to move on now. Those were our first 2 recipes, and then I'm going to cover carrot bacon, and then I'll cover the rice paper bacon at the end. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the different types of bacon that you can make. And people have been doing some really cool experimentation, some recipe development, and they're coming up with all sorts of fun bacon recipes. So people are making bacon out of carrots, mushrooms, zucchini, coconut flakes like we just did, tempeh, and tofu. Also, you can make bacon out of seitan as well. And some people are even making bacon out of rice paper, which we're going to demonstrate the final recipe. And they're also making it out of banana peels. And I haven't tried that one yet, but it sounds very interesting. I have made bacon almost out of every single one of these. And the only one I haven't made is eggplant bacon. I've tried mushroom bacon, and I love mushrooms, but the mushroom bacon I wasn't a huge fan of it. the texture was a little bit off for me. So these 4 recipes are my favorite bacons, and I think that you will like them too. But I would encourage you to experiment with the different types of bacon, and also experiment with your marinades. And then I just wanted to mention there are some nice products on the market. I went vegetarian when I was 12, and we basically had nothing like we do now. Benevolent Bacon is a good product I think people like, and the same with Light Life. They have a nice bacon. However, I just personally like making my own bacon. I think that that's the funnest thing to do.
Hey, Sarah.
So the key, as I mentioned previously, the key to making flavorful bacon is in the
Which
marinade.
Sarah?
I don't know what that was.
That was Siri chiming in because I was like, hey, Sarah,
But,
question
like
for
I
you.
said, I think everyone knows how to make a marinade, but generally a marinade is used to develop the flavor profile of your whatever you're cooking. You can use like tofu, tempeh, different types of plant-based meats, mushrooms. Marinades just help you make a flavorful protein or make whatever you're cooking more flavorful. And like I said, it helps to develop that flavor profile. And generally, when you make a marinade, you want to have some key components like a fat, an acid, a salty component, a sweet component, and these are just a few of the ingredients that you can use in your marinade. Here we have some apple cider vinegar, and that's the acid component. That's a pretty standard ingredient in marinades. We also have soy sauce. You can also use coconut aminos or tamari. Then we have maple syrup, and that makes your marinade sweet. And we also have some molasses as well. And then the fat component, I really like to add just a little bit of olive oil. You could also use a lighter oil like a safflower oil. And then nutritional yeast, I used nutritional yeast on our rice paper bacon recipe, and I really enjoyed using that. It gives it not just a nice texture, but it also makes it, I think it's a little bit of a smoky flavor too. It usually does like a cheesy flavor as well. And then probably the most important ingredient when you're making bacon, vegan bacon, is liquid smoke. And if you don't know what liquid smoke is, it's basically smoke in a bottle. And it makes a smoky flavor, obviously, but it helps develop that flavor profile. And liquid smoke is great to use in vegan cooking just in general. I've made macaroni and cheese and put some liquid smoke in it. You can also make like a cheesy sauce and make a smoky cheesy sauce with that. But it's really good to have on hand, and especially good for your marinades. Another way that you can make a smoky flavor is through smoked paprika or regular paprika. And then the other 2 ingredients that I really like to use too are onion powder and garlic powder. I like to use this in all my recipes because it just helps develop that flavor, and it keeps it interesting, and it keeps your food intriguing, and it makes people want to eat it basically. And then the other great thing about the marinade is that you have all of these components: the sweet, the salty, the smoky, the fat component, the acid, but you can also add a little bit of heat. So here I have a little bit of chipotle powder and then a little bit of cayenne. You can really add anything that you want to a marinade. If you like hot stuff, then I would say maybe add a little bit to different types of flavored hot sauce. That would be a really fun thing to do as well. So anyway, those are the basics. When you're making a marinade, you want to add the flavors that you really enjoy. And some people will just, make their own marinade and just throw things together, and it can turn out really good. I prefer to follow a recipe because I don't always make, when I throw things together, I don't always do the greatest job. So I like to make recipes, write them down, follow them, or use other recipes. So I'm more of a recipe follower, but if you like to just throw things together, you can do some soy sauce, some maple syrup, a little bit of liquid smoke. Those are all the typical ingredients to use. And then the next thing I wanted to mention is this is the cookbook that kind of started me being interested in vegan bacon. And this is called Bacon-ish. And this is by Lanana Two Moons, and it's the coolest cookbook. I feel like she is vegan for the animals, and she talks a lot about, you know, why not to eat bacon, but then she also talks about, like what I just described to you, the components of making really delicious bacon. She has some excellent bacon recipes in here: coconut bacon, mushroom bacon, bacon bits. She has a really nice recipe for carrot bacon, tempeh bacon, seitan bacon, and not just those bacons, but she also has some other recipes that you can use bacon in, like a quiche, apple fritters. There's some really nice recipes, like an omelet. I highly recommend this book. If you are a bacon lover and want to get real way into this, this is a great cookbook to pick up. So I talked a little bit about the marinade, and I do also want to mention that once you make a marinade, you're going to want to taste it to be sure that it tastes good to you. And I will also caution that if you, I wouldn't add too much of a sweet component or too much of a salty component, because what I found is the flavors kind of concentrate and they develop and they get stronger as you cook them. I made some of this bacon when I was working on some of the recipes, and I put too much sweet in them, and they've got really, really sweet. So I dialed it back a little bit, and I didn't include as much sweet in the recipes, but you could add more sweetener. You can add any of the other ingredients that suit your tastes. You can just experiment with this and find some recipes that you really enjoy. So,
Can I
and
ask,
then I'll just
can
go
I ask
ahead.
a question for you?
Yes.
We had one question regarding the parchment paper before I forgot.
Yes.
I'm not sure, Mar, I'm saying your name right. They asking if we could use a Silpat liner instead of parchment.
I believe you could. Yeah. I don't think that there would be any problem with that. I think that that would be better than just putting it on your cookie sheet straight, but you would have to experiment with it. I'll have to try a Silpat. I've seen them in the stores, and I'd like to get one, but yeah, I believe that that would work pretty well. So, and like I mentioned previously, the bacon is so delicate. It's usually very thin, and it burns really, really easily. So you always want to be mindful. Don't leave when you put your bacon on. Make sure to stay by it, check it, stir it often, flip it often as well too, because it will burn in no time. And then just finally on that, there are 4 ways that you can cook bacon. You can cook it on the stovetop, you can bake it, and you can also air fry it, which I have not tried yet, but I've seen people do it and they seem to really like it because it gives it that nice crispiness. Apparently carrot bacon is really good in the air fryer. And then the final thing that you can do, and I haven't tried this either, is people like to dehydrate bacon as well if you have a dehydrator. And that might be really good because then it would last quite a while, and then it would be really crispy if you like crispy bacon. So the next, I think we're going to move on to the final 2 recipes. And these are the kind of the most intensive recipes. So I wanted to, and the funnest recipes too. So I kind of wanted to save these till the end. We're going to do carrot bacon now. And I first had carrot bacon when my friend Chris and we went to Handy Diner. I don't know if anyone remembers Handy Diner, but it was downtown Denver. It was a really fun kind of dive breakfast place, and she had the most delicious bacon, and we were just amazed with it. So I've had it a few other times, and I've made it as well. You want to get a carrot that is as big as you can find. This is actually a tiny, this was the biggest carrot I could find, but you want to get a pretty substantially big carrot because you're going to strip this. And it's very thin, so it's not going to provide too much. If you get a small one, it's not going to provide too much meat, as you could say. So what I'm going to do, and you could cut this several ways. If you have a mandolin. You could make strips out of it with the mandolin. A mandolin is a little bit dangerous and not many people have a mandolin. So I'm not doing a mandolin. I like this technique that I'm using just to show you. But some people cut it at an angle. You could also cut very thin strips. That's a little bit more dangerous trying to work with something like this. So I'm just going to show you a fun way to just basically shave. You're going to shave off strips. So what you want to do is hold it pretty tightly and then shave off the first peel. Can you see me? Well, I'm just gonna, I think everyone knows how to peel. You have a potato peeler. Sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that, but you have a potato peeler and you just shave it into thin strips. And this is what you come up with. They're very, very thin. And this is why that is why they cook so quickly and they burn so easily. But you just want to keep shaving. And if anyone is a TikTok person or likes Tabitha Brown was the one that made coconut bacon go viral. And this is actually, I got the idea to shave it like this from her. And I figured just for everyone, the ease of making this bacon, this would be the best thing for everyone to do. Like I said, you can do it with a mandolin. There are probably some other techniques that you can use, but these nice thin strips are just a really fun thing to do. The only downfall with this is these strips don't stay crispy very long. And so you kind of have to eat them pretty quickly. And you just want to shave the strips down as far as you can go. I probably could get a little more out of that, but you will end up with kind of a nub that you can't really go any further. My dogs love carrots, and so I'm going to give that to my dogs. But what you end up with is just a bunch of, really thin carrot strips. And now we're going to use I'm going to put my marinade directly in the carrot shavings. You could do it in a separate bowl, but I made this earlier and I think I did just fine just putting it in here. So I'm going to do just a little bit of maple syrup. And I like the sweetness in this. You probably don't have to add the maple syrup if you're not a sweet fan, but just add a little bit of maple syrup directly. And then a little bit of olive oil, and the olive oil will help when it cooks. It'll give it just a nice crispy kind of oily texture. Oh, and then I'm not sure, hopefully we got you guys the right recipe. I had a version previously, I sent a version and it had 1 tablespoon of tamari. We don't want 1 tablespoon of tamari. We just want 1 teaspoon of tamari, just enough to give it a little bit of saltiness. I tried this with salt and I didn't really like it. So I do think that you want some tamari in this one. And then I'm going to add some garlic powder and some onion powder and the smoked paprika. And I mentioned in the recipe notes that if you would like to make this more smoky, you could add a little bit of liquid smoke too. So I'm gonna do the paprika and then just a little bit of the garlic. And just a little bit of the onion powder. And then with clean hands, I think, and you could just probably use a spoon, but I like doing it like this. So I'm just gonna mix around the carrots and just let them kind of marinate, kind of stew in their own juices there, and it'll really help bring out the flavor of the carrots, and it'll just kind of meld all together. So now we're going to move on to the rice paper, but hopefully you can all see that. Very thin, but they were really tasty. And at this point, if I were you, I'd give it a nice taste. They actually taste really, really good. I like the maple syrup. I really like that flavor combination. So I think that that's a really good recipe to work from. But if you want to make your own marinade, you could do that too. And then I would let that marinate for about 10 minutes or so. And I'm going to move on to the rice paper bacon now. This back here. And now I would say that the rice paper bacon, it's so crispy. I would say the rice paper bacon was probably my favorite. And when I made this recipe last time, this was another one that I made and was really, really sweet. So I backed the maple syrup back a little bit and the molasses. But if you like it more sweet, I would encourage you to add a little bit more maple syrup. And I also added quite a bit of paprika. If you don't like too much paprika, you might back that off a little bit too. So this is rice paper. And rice paper is used to make spring rolls, mostly. There's some other things that people do as well. This is easy to find at Safeway, easy to find at King Soopers as well. The great thing about this rice paper is it's pretty cheap and it lasts forever. You can get some and put it in your pantry. And then if you're hungry for it on a Saturday or Sunday morning, you can just pull it out. And there's tons of sheets in here too. And for this recipe, you want to be sure that you are using two and you want to set one on top of the other because this makes it more thick and it will help it be a little bit more crispy. And what we're going to do with this recipe is I have like you can have like a dish or this is like a pie plate. I'm going to put just a little bit of water in this. And what we're going to do is we're going to get this just lightly wet. You don't want to soak this. You just want to dip it really quickly, both sides in the water. And then we're going to cut it into strips. So, and also if you're doing spring rolls, I've also learned you don't want to soak this for spring rolls. You never want to soak your rice paper at all, or else it gets really gummy and it becomes mush. So it's just a real light dip. And this also helps the two sheets stick together. You can also make sure that it gets in between, but then after you soak it, you can see it's still a little bit hard, but not soggy. And so the thing that I found best, I tried a few different ways to work with this. The thing that I found that was best was just to use scissors. And so now what we want to do is we want to cut this into strips. And you kind of want to work quickly because this is going to get mushier the longer you wait. And I think what I'm going to do, this is what you end up with. Just you can do half to 3/4 inch strips. What I'm going to do, we're going to put these on a parchment lined cookie sheet. Oops. I'm never very good at pulling that off. But here's our parchment lined cookie sheet. And I'm also going to put our carrot bacon on this as well, just to show everybody. So I'm going to put the rice paper slices directly on the parchment lined sheet. And like I said, this gets pretty sticky. So you do want to work with it fairly quickly, at least get it on the parchment paper, because I found that once you get it on the parchment paper, you're good to go. But I see I've even waited a little bit too long here. It gets kind of sticky. It really got sticky. Yeah, so you want to have that. I should make that note. You want to have your parchment paper ready to go. So we have a couple strips, and I think the strips that we do have can work. But basically, just put them on your cookie sheet, and then you have the recipe for this marinade. And I've pre-prepped the marinade. I made this morning, and this is actually a really nice marinade. It does have a lot of paprika, so if you don't like the paprika, I'd back that back a little bit, and maybe add a little bit of maple syrup if you little more maple syrup. But this is a really nice marinade, and it tastes like barbecue sauce. So, and I think I really like it. I am a sweet person, so I really like maple syrup, and it also has molasses in there. And I really like the flavor that the molasses gives it. So what we're gonna do to our strips is I have a basting brush, and I'm going to just start putting basically just coating the rice paper with a little bit of I don't think that strip will work, but just basically coating the rice paper with the marinade. And then you want to flip it over. And once you get the marinade on there, it's not as sticky, but you want to flip it over and do the other side.
Sarah, can you quickly just mention the ingredients of the marinade?
Yes. Yeah, so this marinade, and I really like this marinade. This marinade has olive oil, tamari, or you could use soy sauce, coconut aminos, and then it has 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, and then it has maple syrup, some molasses, and liquid smoked paprika, and I used a lot of smoked paprika. You might need to back that off, like I said. Little garlic powder, black pepper, and if you like it hot, you might be able to put some chipotle in it. Don't put too much in it because it'll be overpowering. But yeah, I would just use this as a general guide, and then add small things in as you go. And then I'm just gonna put a little bit more of the marinade on these strips. I think I'll get rid of this one because that one's just got too gummy. And I'll show you guys what it looks like. And then you just pop this in the oven. What do we have this at? 375 for, it's 6 to 7 minutes. I cooked it on 7 minutes this morning and it was a touch too long. So I'd say 6 to 7 minutes. And this one is really hard because you have to balance it from not being soggy, but still being crispy. So it's a dance that you have to do. But watch this and make sure, this is another one that if you burn it, it just doesn't work. So watch it carefully and just be really mindful of the cooking temperature. And and then I also wanted to mention, as I have in the instructions, I did find some people had done an experiment and they had found that you can, as an alternative to basting, coating with the basting brush, you can cut it into strips and then you can put it in a marinade. You can put it in directly in the marinade. You might need to add a little bit of water, but that might be a little less messy of a process. I have not had a chance to try that, but it might be an option for folks. So, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to get out our carrot bacon has been marinating, and we'll pull out the strips. Very, very fine strips. Now this cooks really quickly too, so you do have to be very mindful with this one. And then just lay the strips. I wouldn't suggest, I think these cook at different temps, so I wouldn't really suggest cooking these together. This is kind of just for demonstration. But you lay the strips out on a parchment lined baking sheet or cookie sheet, just as many as you can. And like I said, you can try to chop these in a variety of different coins or strips and just lay them out on the parchment paper. And I think we cooked this at, I can't remember, 325. And this one too, it's either 12 to 13 minutes. Watch this. You don't need to flip either of these. You don't need to flip them or stir them or anything, but you do need to watch them because they will burn really quickly. They're so thin that they'll burn. And then we'll just show you the carrot bacon real quickly. And then we're gonna pop this in the oven. And then thanks to the miracle of technology, or the miracle of television, as they say, we have our bacon. I don't know if you can see this, but this is our completed bacon. So I cooked this morning. This is the rice paper bacon, and it's still fairly crispy. This won't stay crispy for too long, so you do want to eat it pretty quickly. But the great thing about this bacon is that it really looks like bacon. And if you get your recipe right, it's actually very delicious. I'd say this one was probably my favorite. It was really fun to make. And then this is the carrot bacon, and it's so thin. But if you can find a different way to cut it, it could be really, really thick and nice. So you want to eat this right away because it's already gone, really soft. You want to eat this, you want to cook it and then eat it for breakfast. And then I'll come around and show this. This is our carrot bacon, or I'm sorry, this is the coconut bacon. And this is really, really delicious stuff. This one is so good. And the great thing about the coconut bacon is that you can make a bunch of it up and you can leave it in your refrigerator. It's really good to put on salads. And the other thing that I really like to do with it is put it on avocado toast. It's just delicious on avocado toast. And that's also a nice one to take on hiking, on camping trips as well. So, and then I just wanted to mention, and then this is the tofu bacon. This is a little thicker, but I'm gonna put it in I made up some potato soup just to show you guys. And you can also make bacon bits. You can chop this up and make little bacon bits out of it too. And this one is also good in a BLT. The rice paper bacon is good in a BLT as well. I've made the tofu bacon and it's excellent in potato skins or like a carbonara pasta, a Cobb salad, or just eat them on their own as well. That's really fun to do too. So, and a great thing to just have as a side to your breakfast. So I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to cover. The last thing I wanted to do is I made some potato soup, and you guys do have the recipe for that. It's actually a really nice recipe. And I made it this morning, and if it gets a little bit too thick, just add a little bit of water or some of the plant-based milk. But I think the recipe is really good. But I'm going to add ladle a little bit of soup out. And this one's somewhat creamy, and I've left some chunks in there too. If you don't have a blender, you can just kind of mash it up. But what I'm gonna do is I'm going to top this. This is our potato soup, and this is a really nice thing. It would have been really nice yesterday when it was really cold, but it's a really nice thing to do, in the winter time. You can top it with a little bit of it has quite a bit of cheese in it. So I'm probably not gonna put additional cheese in it, but you could put some non-dairy cheese in it. And one thing that I really like to do is add a little bit of Kite Hill unsweetened yogurt. I like to use this as a sour cream substitute. And so you can put a little bit of the Kite Hill yogurt on it. And then I would highly recommend doing some chives as well. I just love the way chives work. Unfortunately, when I went to the grocery store, I didn't find any chives. They were out, but I do have some microgreens. So I'm just gonna put a couple of microgreens on top of this. And then I'm going to break up some of my tofu bacon into little bacon bits. And you could also cut this, but we'll just go ahead and break it up.
So Sarah, for the tofu bacon, did you find that it is better to have it marinated longer?
It doesn't, I would say overnight is good. I don't really, it seems like it comes to a point where it isn't gonna suck in any more of the marinade. So I don't think marinating it longer than a night is necessary. Some people might want to marinated longer, but at minimum, and every single one of them has kind of a different time frame of how long you want to marinate them. Like the coconut bacon, you only need to marinate it maybe 10 minutes. The carrot bacon, we did like 10 minutes. I think it's also like dependent on how thick they are and how easy they are absorb the marinade. And then this, we didn't need to marinate the rice paper. So now tempeh, you might need to marinate at least an hour because it's very dense and it's hard for the marinade to absorb. So
Yeah. And
anyway,
you would kind of steam before you marinate, right?
tempeh, yes. We always recommend either soaking tempeh overnight or steaming it. You can boil, simmer it as well, and that will help break it down a little bit and make it softer. And then the flavor will absorb a little bit better.
Okay. And with the tofu, you had it pressed before you marinated it, right? How long did
Yeah.
you press it
So
for?
what I do when I press the tofu is you just, what I do is I wrap it in a little, and some people have tofu presses, but I wrap it in a paper towel and then I put something heavy on top of it. And you can also put like a cast iron skillet on top of it, or just some books or some plates. And I don't press it too terribly long. I know some people are very diligent about pressing their tofu and really it's very important for them, but I don't really, it's not that important for me. I like it either way. So, but I think some people like to press it because it will absorb the marinade a little bit more. I guess you just kind of have to experiment and see what you like.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I did the last time when I pressed tofu, and I pressed it for about 20 minutes
Yeah.
until it was half the size, and then I marinated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of tofu. I'm not sure how it is for you folks, but tofu is a tough one for me when it comes to marinating. I feel like it's not getting enough flavor in like I would like to have it. So tofu is always like, how long and what's the best practice for that?
Yeah. The other thing that I love to do to make my tofu taste good is to broil it or put it in the air fryer, because it helps make a nice crispiness to it, and that gives it the best texture as well.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Doesn't
No,
look
thank you so much. We'll share, this isn't specific to making bacon, but I learned from him in using tofu that freezing it first and then thawing it and pressing it makes for a nice absorbent texture.
cool.
A lot of people like to do that too. Yes. Thank you for that tip.
Do we have any other questions? Okay.
Someone else is a fan of freezing tofu.
I have to try that. Never done it.
Yeah.
Didn't occur to me.
It does. It really changes the texture for sure. It seems like it makes it when I've done it, it seems like it makes like not really cracks, but more air bubbles or something.
It's coarser.
It gets a little squishier. It just changes the composition of the tofu. So.
Well, everybody, if we don't have any other questions, let's see. Thank you very much, Sarah, for your time and for doing this fantastic class. I'm really hungry right now, but I don't have nice bacon here. I would have to cook some. I do have tofu. Maybe I'm going to get in the kitchen. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody for attending. If you have any question, you can send them to me or Sarah. I think, let's see.
Yeah, and if you ever make any of your bacon, you can tag us at Good Life Refuge or on my Instagram page. It's just my name, Sarah Easton. You can tag us or you can send us any questions and we'll answer them. Or if you have any fun recipes that you find, be sure to send us a message and let us know. And like I said, just try some of these recipes out and see what you like. And one thing I would also say is kind of if you find a recipe that you really like, write it down, because I will make stuff sometimes and I won't write it down and then I'll be like, oh, what did I do? So be sure to write your recipes down that you like. So
Yeah, done that 100th time. What did I do here? I'm like, it was great. I'm like, oh, great. I forgot totally how I made it. So
yeah.
no, that is a great tip, Sarah.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for joining us and supporting the Good Life Refuge. I think we were able to raise quite a few dollars. So we greatly appreciate your donations and your time and your interest in plant-based bacon. And stay tuned because Nicole and I will be doing some additional classes in the future. So we'd love to have you join us.
Absolutely. And we have a few more classes that I'm working on. As Sarah mentioned, we have one that's Food for Life. No, Food is Medicine, which is done by Sebna. She's a certified PCRM Food for Life instructor, health coach and chef too. So that will be fun. And then she also will do a 4 serious cancer prevention class. It's kind of like how to cook, right? So that will be interesting and very wholesome and healthy. So we're excited about that. I will hopefully soon have all the information out to put it out, but it's coming. Just as a heads up, thank you so much for your time and your donations. It will really help right now because we've been hammered with medical costs and having a lot of sick and elderly animals that kind of the cold snap didn't help. So thanks for that. And then last information is we have recorded the sessions. This is the first time I kind of fiddle around with the recordings, but I will make sure that I have it downloaded on a place and we'll send out the link to everybody that signed up for the class today so that if you want to watch it again, you can. And that was it for me. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We're supposed to get more snow. Yay! Just got all the snow shoveled yesterday. So I'm hoping tomorrow will not be as bad. But yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you so much. We can't do this without your support, and we really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.